The survey fleet of the Kraxhar Empire dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, with perfect coordination. 12 massive warships hung in the darkness of space, their hulls gleaming with energy shields that had never been broken in 4,000 years of conquest. Admiral Vextor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable Dominion. His forearms clasped behind his back as he studied the blue planet on his view screen. Earth, such a small world really. The inhabitants called themselves humans, and according to the Empire's intelligence, they had barely managed to put a few primitive stations in orbit around their planet. Analysis complete. Admiral, his tactical officer reported. The officer's scales shifted to a pleased purple color. The planet has abundant water, suitable atmosphere for slave workers, and rich mineral deposits. Population of 8 billion. Military technology is amusing. They still use chemical rockets and nuclear fission weapons. Vextor's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. This would be the easiest conquest of his career. The Empire's protocol for dealing with primitive worlds was simple and had never failed. One message, one chance to surrender, then if necessary a demonstration of power that would break their spirits forever. Open all communication channels, Vextor commanded. Broadcast in their dominant languages. The message went out across every frequency humans used, from radio waves to their primitive internet networks. Television programs stopped mid-broadcast. Phone conversations cut out. Computer screens everywhere displayed the same words while an artificial voice spoke in perfect synchronization. Inhabitants of Earth, you have been selected for the honor of joining the Kraxhar Empire. Your resources will serve the greater good. Your people will work for the glory of the Empire. You have 72 hours to transmit your complete and unconditional surrender. Failure to comply will result in the elimination of one major population center as a demonstration. After that, you will have one final day to surrender before systematic planetary cleansing begins. This is not a negotiation. This is a notification. In New York City, people stood frozen in Times Square, staring at the giant screens that all showed the same message. In Tokyo, salary workers stopped mid-stride on their way home. In London, Parliament was in session when the message interrupted everything. And for once, the chamber fell completely silent. General Sarah Chen was in the middle of a joint military exercise in Nevada when the message came through. She watched it twice, then immediately activated the emergency protocols that most people didn't even know existed. Within minutes, she was on a secure line with world leaders. How long until they reach Earth? The American president asked during the emergency video conference. If they maintain their current position, they're 3 days out, Chen reported. But they could move faster if they wanted. They're giving us time to panic. Can we fight them? The Chinese premier asked bluntly. Chen had spent the last 5 years preparing for this exact question, though she'd hoped never to answer it. Not conventionally. Their ships are each the size of Manhattan. Our best nuclear weapons might not even scratch their shields. Then we surrender, the French president said. We save lives. No. Chen's voice was firm. We have one option. It's risky, but it might work. She began explaining Project Prometheus, the classified program that had been running for 20 years. Ever since strange signals from deep space had been detected, a select group of scientists and military officials had been preparing. They developed weapons in secret, hidden beneath the chaos of Earth's regular politics and conflicts. You're saying we've had antimatter weapons for 3 years and nobody knew? The Russian president demanded. Among other things, Chen confirmed. But we need to be smart about this. They expect us to either surrender or try to fight with conventional weapons. They don't expect us to actually be dangerous. The British Prime Minister leaned forward. What are you suggesting, General? We give them a warning. One warning, in their own language. How do we even know their language? Someone asked. Chen smiled grimly. Their message contained enough data for our AI systems to decode it. They wanted to make sure we understood them. That arrogance is going to cost them. The debate raged for 6 hours. Some leaders wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to surrender and hope for mercy. A few suggested launching everything they had immediately. But eventually Chen's plan won. Not because it was safe, but because it was the only plan that offered Earth a chance to remain free. Around the world, things began to move. Factories that had been producing cars suddenly shifted to producing weapons. Every 3D printer on the planet received new instructions. Scientists who had been working on climate change found themselves calculating explosive yields. The entire planet began to transform, but quietly, carefully. The Kraxar were surely watching, and Earth needed them to see exactly what they expected to see. A panicking, primitive world. Social media exploded with fear and chaos, which was real enough. But beneath that chaos, humanity did what it had always done when threatened. It adapted. It prepared. It got ready to fight. In secret bunkers, Chen met with her international team of commanders. They had people from every nation, working together for the first time in human history with absolute unity. The Russian general, who had once been her rival, now stood beside her studying tactical displays. The Chinese admiral, who had played dangerous games in the South China Sea, now shared his best strategies openly. The mines are in place, the Japanese commander reported, disguised as space debris, just as planned. The Kraxar sensors haven't detected anything unusual. Good, what about the virus? Chen asked. Our hackers have been probing their communications, the Israeli cyber warfare specialist said. Their encryption is advanced, but they made one mistake. They assume no primitive species would even try to hack them. They have no lower-level security protocols. It's like having an impregnable fortress with an unlocked servant's entrance. Chen nodded. Everything was falling into place, but they needed to send their response soon. The clock was ticking, and Earth needed to make its move. The message they crafted was simple. It took the best linguists and codebreakers just hours to perfect it in the Kraxar language. When the 72-hour deadline was still 24 hours away, Earth broadcast its response. The transmission was powerful, sent from every radio telescope and communications array on the planet simultaneously. It reached the Kraxar fleet in seconds, and across the 12 warships, universal translators processed the message. This is our sole warning. Do not approach Earth. You have 71 hours to withdraw. On the bridge of the inevitable Dominion, there was a moment of absolute silence. Then Admiral Vextor began to laugh. It was a sound like grinding metal, and his crew joined him. The tactical officer actually had to grip a console to keep from falling over with mirth. Did they just threaten us? The weapons officer gasped between laughs. A species that hasn't even left their own solar system? Vextor wiped moisture from his 4 eyes. Oh, this is precious. In 4,000 years, I've never seen such delightful bravado. Save that message for the Imperial Museum. It will amuse citizens for generations. Should we respond, Admiral? The communications officer asked. No, let them have their moment of courage. It will make their surrender all the sweeter, or their destruction more poetic. Vextor settled back into his command chair. Continue observations. I want to know everything about their defenses before we move. Not that it matters, but I'm curious what they think they can do to us. On Earth, Chen stood in the command center they'd established deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain. Screens showed the positions of the alien fleet unmoving, probably laughing at humanity's warning. That was fine. Let them laugh. All units report ready, her aide informed her. Operation David Stone is prepared. Chen looked at the countdown timer. 70 hours and 43 minutes until the deadline. Humanity had given its warning, just as international law and basic decency demanded even in war. When the Kraxar ignored it, everything that followed would be on their heads. Now we wait, Chen said, and when they come, we show them why humans have survived everything the universe has thrown at us. Outside, the sun set over Earth and 8 billion humans went to sleep, not knowing if they would wake to freedom or slavery. But in hidden bunkers and secret facilities, humanity's defenders worked through the night, preparing to give the galaxy the surprise of its existence. Admiral Vextor stood before the tactical display, studying Earth with the careful eye of a conqueror who had claimed hundreds of worlds. His forearms moved through holographic projections, pulling up data about human military installations, population centers, and resource deposits. Their warning, his second-in-command said with amusement. Should we include it in our report to the Empire? Of course, Vextor replied. The Emperor enjoys these little acts of defiance from primitive species. It reminds us why the Empire's guidance is necessary. These humans clearly have more courage than sense. The bridge crew went about their duties with the relaxed efficiency of veterans who had done this many times before. They scanned Earth's defenses, counted the primitive satellites, and laughed at the humans' attempts to hide their military movements. Admiral, they're moving their naval vessels, the tactical officer reported. Their water-based ships are clustering around certain coordinates in their oceans. Water ships, Vextor mused. How quaint. They still fight on the surface of their world. Make note of it for the anthropologists. What the Kraxhar didn't notice was what those ships were really doing. Each vessel was positioned over deep ocean trenches where humanity had hidden its real weapons. The ships were not gathering for defense. They were providing cover for the massive doors opening beneath them on the ocean floor. In a facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Yuki Tanaka watched her team perform final checks on humanity's secret arsenal. For 3 years, they had been building weapons using antimatter technology that the public believed was still theoretical. Containment fields are stable, her assistant reported. Each warhead has enough antimatter to crack a moon in half. Good, Tanaka said. How many do we have? 5,000 distributed across all launch sites. It should have been impossible. Creating even a gram of antimatter should have taken years and massive amounts of energy. But humanity had found a shortcut, a quirk of physics discovered by accident during experiments at CERN. They could produce antimatter efficiently, store it safely, and now they would use it to save their world. Above ground, the 71 hours ticked by with agonizing slowness. Cities continued their evacuation drills, which the Kraxhar observed with interest. They saw panicking humans fleeing to the countryside and assumed it was fear of the coming bombardment. They didn't realize these people were moving to positions above deep bunkers, ready to disappear underground at a moment's notice. General Chen coordinated the deception from her command center. Every move had 2 purposes, what the aliens would see and what was really happening. Status report, she demanded. The Russians have their sonic drills running at full speed. The underground cities will be ready in 60 hours. The Chinese electromagnetic shields are charging. They're disguised as power plant operations. American cyber warfare teams have penetrated 3 levels of Kraxhar encryption. We'll have full access to their communications within 40 hours. Chen nodded at each report. Humanity was racing against time, but not in the way the Kraxhar expected. Earth wasn't preparing to surrender or mounting a desperate last stand. It was preparing a trap. The Kraxhar, meanwhile, conducted their standard pre-invasion surveys with bureaucratic thoroughness. They cataloged Earth's languages, studied its histories, and made notes about which landmarks to preserve as examples of primitive culture. Their history is fascinating, the chief anthropologist told Admiral Vextor. They've been killing each other for thousands of years. Constant warfare, never united, always divided. That explains their foolish warning, Vextor said. They don't understand what real power looks like. They've only fought each other, never a superior civilization. The anthropologist pulled up images of human conflicts. Look at this, they used nuclear weapons on their own kind. They poisoned their own atmosphere with chemical weapons. They're savages, Admiral. Savages who will soon learn discipline under the Empire's rule, Vextor agreed. But while they studied humanity's violent past, they missed the important detail. Humans had been practicing warfare for their entire existence. Every generation had refined the art of combat, developed new strategies, and found innovative ways to defeat stronger enemies. The Kraxhar saw primitive brutality. They should have seen expertise. In hidden facilities around the world, humanity's greatest minds worked together for the first time. Russian scientists shared secrets with American researchers. Chinese engineers collaborated with European designers. The combined knowledge of Earth flowed freely, without patents or politics getting in the way. Project Prometheus was just one part of the plan. There was also Project Titan, which had turned Earth's moon into a weapon. Project Hydra, which had created the quantum virus now ready to infect alien systems. Project Phoenix, which had built underground cities that could shelter billions. Admiral, we're detecting increased electromagnetic activity on Earth. A sensor operator reported to Vextor. They're probably trying to boost their communications, the Admiral said dismissively. Fear makes primitives do strange things. The electromagnetic activity was actually Earth's newest defense system coming online. A network of satellites disguised as communication relays were actually generators for a planetary shield. It wouldn't stop the Kraxhar fleet, but it would do something else. It would trap them. As the deadline approached, Earth made its final preparations. Every nuclear weapon had been retrofitted with antimatter triggers. Every computer virus was loaded and ready. Every soldier, scientist, and citizen knew their role. Chen stood before a screen showing her counterparts from around the world. For the first time in human history, every nation was truly united. There were no Russians or Americans or Chinese in that room. There were only humans. 10 hours until the deadline, she announced. Final status check. India reports all underground shelters sealed and secured. Brazil has completed camouflage of all military installations. Japan's orbital mines are in position, powered down to avoid detection. European cyber teams have the virus ready for deployment. African Union forces have completed evacuation of all major cities. Middle Eastern energy weapons are charged and ready. Chen took a deep breath. Then we're ready. When the Kraxhar make their move, we respond with everything. No hesitation, no mercy. They had their warning. On the inevitable Dominion, Admiral Vextor prepared for the demonstration of power that would break Earth's spirit. He had chosen his target carefully, New York City. Its destruction would be visible from space, a burning scar on Earth's surface that would show humanity the futility of resistance. 6 hours until deadline, his tactical officer announced. Should we move into position? Send the swift judgment, Vextor commanded. A single destroyer is more than enough to destroy one primitive city. Have them target the large green area in the center. What do the humans call it? Central Park, Admiral. Yes, poetic. Begin approach in 5 hours. I want the destruction to happen exactly as their deadline expires. The swift judgment, smallest of the 12 ships but still massive by human standards, began its slow approach toward Earth. Its crew of 10,000 prepared their weapons with casual confidence. They had done this before on other worlds. One city would burn and the planet would surrender. It was almost boring in its predictability. But Earth was not like other worlds. Humans had not spent their history fighting because they enjoyed it. They had been training. Every war had taught them something new. Every conflict had hardened them. Every loss had made them more determined never to lose again. As the swift judgment moved toward Earth, thousands of hidden sensors tracked its approach. The orbital mines, disguised as defunct satellites and space debris, calculated intercept vectors. In underground bunkers, fingers hovered over launch buttons. 3 hours until deadline, someone announced in Chen's command center. Chen looked at the display showing the approaching destroyer. It was massive, beautiful in its way, and completely doomed. The Kraxhar had ignored humanity's warning. Now they would learn why humans had survived on a hostile world, surrounded by predators through ice ages and disasters, wars and plagues. All units prepare for Operation David Stone. On my mark, we show them that Earth stands ready. The countdown continued, each second bringing Earth closer to its moment of truth. The Kraxhar thought they were about to teach humanity a lesson about power. They were right, but not in the way they expected. The swift judgment moved through space with the grace of a predator absolutely certain of its kill. Captain Zexaval stood on his bridge, watching Earth grow larger on his view screen. In 30 minutes, he would fire a single plasma beam into New York City, and the humans' resistance would crumble. Approaching optimal firing range, his weapons officer announced. Earth's primitive satellites are tracking us but taking no action. They're probably recording their own defeat, Zexval said. Let them. It will serve as a reminder to their survivors. What looked like old satellites and space junk floated harmlessly around the destroyer's path. Some pieces had been there for decades, according to the ship's sensors. Others were newer but equally useless. Dead communication relays, defunct weather monitors, pieces of old rockets. The swift judgment's shields automatically cataloged each piece of debris, marking them as harmless. The ship's computer counted 3,427 pieces of human space junk within striking range. It dismissed them all as irrelevant. In her command center, General Chen watched the destroyer approach. Distance to target, 15,000 kilometers in closing. They'll be in their optimal firing position in 10 minutes. Chen turned to her weapons commander. Are the mines ready? All 3,000 units are powered and waiting for your signal. 3,000, not 3,427. The Kraxhar had counted every piece of real space junk, but they had also counted the mines. Perfect. Signal all units, Chen commanded. Operation David Stone is authorized. Fire on my mark. The swift judgment's captain was just beginning to give the order to charge weapons when his tactical officer screamed. Not shouted, not exclaimed, screamed. The debris. It's moving. It's all moving toward us. 3,000. Objects that had been drifting harmlessly through space suddenly burned to life with hidden engines. They accelerated at rates that should have torn them apart, converging on the swift judgment from every direction. Shields to maximum! Evasive maneuvers! Zexval shouted, but it was too late. The mines didn't try to penetrate the shields. They didn't need to. Each one carried a fusion warhead enhanced with antimatter, creating an explosion far beyond what their size suggested. The first mine detonated against the destroyer's shields, and the energy release was visible from Earth's surface. Then the second mine hit. Then the third, then dozens, then hundreds. The swift judgment shields designed to withstand attacks from other warships held for exactly 8 seconds. On the 9th second, they collapsed, and the remaining 2,000 mines struck the naked hull. The destroyer didn't explode. It ceased. The antimatter reactions tore apart the very atoms of the ship, converting matter directly into energy. In 12 seconds, a vessel that had taken 50 years to build became an expanding cloud of superheated plasma. 10,000 Kraxhar lives ended in an instant. On Earth, people watching the sky saw a new star appear briefly, brighter than Venus, then fade. In command centers around the world, human observers watched their screens in grim satisfaction. The mines had worked. Admiral Vextor stood frozen on his bridge, watching the tactical display where the swift judgment had simply vanished. The cloud of energy that had been his destroyer was already dissipating, leaving nothing but background radiation. What just happened? His voice was barely a whisper. The debris field, Admiral. His tactical officer's scales had turned white with shock. It was a trap. The humans. They killed them all. For the first time in 4,000 years of conquest, a Kraxhar vessel had been destroyed by a primitive species on first contact. The bridge crew stood in stunned silence, unable to process what they had witnessed. Then Vextor's shock turned to rage. His scales flushed deep red, and his 4 arms trembled with fury. All ships, battle formation, charge all weapons. We will burn their entire world for this. But as the Kraxhar fleet began to move, Earth revealed its second surprise. Admiral, electromagnetic surge detected from Earth's surface. Multiple launches detected, thousands. No, tens of thousands of projectiles incoming. The sky above Earth lit up as humanity fired everything. From hidden silos in the ocean floors, from camouflaged bases in mountain ranges, from underground facilities beneath major cities, missiles rose like angry hornets. Each one carried antimatter warheads, but more importantly, each one carried something else. Analyzing incoming weapons, the tactical officer reported, his training overcoming his shock. Primitive chemical rockets with, Admiral, I'm reading antimatter signatures. That's impossible. They shouldn't have this technology for another 1,000 years. All ships defensive fire, destroy those missiles, Vextor commanded. The Kraxhar fleet's point defense systems activated, filling space with energy beams and projectiles. They destroyed hundreds of missiles, then thousands. But for every one they stopped, 3 more kept coming. Earth had turned its entire industrial capacity to building these weapons, and now they darkened the space between the planet and the fleet. But the missiles weren't really meant to hit the ships. As they exploded either from impact or from being destroyed, they released something else. A quantum virus, encoded in the electromagnetic pulse of each detonation, spread through space, and infiltrated the Kraxhar systems through their own sensors. Admiral, something's wrong with our computers, the communications officer reported. I'm seeing cascade errors in multiple systems. It's in the sensor data, the chief engineer realized. Every time we scan an explosion, something comes with it. Cut all external sensors. But it was too late. The virus was already inside their systems, spreading through the networked fleet like wildfire through dry grass. It was brilliantly simple. It convinced each system that its neighboring system was malfunctioning and needed to be isolated. Within minutes, the mighty warships were tearing themselves apart from the inside as their own computers turned on each other. On the Eternal Conquest, the life support system decided the weapons array was a threat and cut its power. On the Glorious Dominion, the navigation computer became convinced it was under attack from the engines and initiated emergency shutdown. On the Pride of Kraxhar, the artificial gravity generators reversed, slamming the crew into the ceilings. Manual control. Everything to manual, Vextor screamed. But manual control required the computer to recognize the manual override, and the computers were too busy fighting each other. Then Earth's third surprise arrived. From the moon's surface, a massive door opened, revealing a weapon that humanity had spent 20 years building in secret. The lunar mass driver, a railgun that used the moon's entire mass as its foundation, powered up with energy drawn from Earth's magnetosphere. The weapon fired a simple projectile, a rod of tungsten wrapped in antimatter containment fields. It crossed the distance between the moon and the Kraxhar fleet at a significant fraction of light speed. The projectile struck the battleship Infinite Resolve directly in its center. The antimatter coating reacted with the hull, and the tungsten rod, now converted to plasma, punched through the ship like a needle through paper. The Infinite Resolve broke in half, its two sections drifting apart as atmosphere and crew spilled into space. "We're being slaughtered!" someone screamed on Vextor's bridge. The admiral watched his invincible fleet fall apart. 4 ships were now completely disabled, drifting without power. 3 more were firing on each other, their virus-infected targeting systems unable to distinguish friend from foe. The remaining ships, including his own, were struggling just to maintain basic functions. Then a communication came through from Earth. General Chen's face appeared on the main screen, somehow overriding their damaged systems. "Admiral Vextor," she said calmly, "you were warned. Your fleet has 2 options. You can withdraw immediately and spread the word that Earth is not to be threatened. Or you can continue this attack, and we will destroy every last one of your ships. You have 5 minutes to decide." "You dare," Vextor began. 4 minutes and 50 seconds, Chen interrupted. "We have 10,000 more missiles ready to launch. The moon cannon is recharging. And Admiral, you should know that the virus in your systems has a second stage. If we activate it, your ships will jump to random coordinates. Some of you might survive, most won't. 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Vextor looked around his bridge. His tactical officer was bleeding from a head wound sustained when the gravity fluctuated. His weapons officer was trying to manually aim guns that wouldn't respond. His proud fleet, which had conquered 100 worlds without losing a single ship, was in ruins. "How?" he asked quietly. "You're primitives. You barely have spaceflight." Chen's expression didn't change. "We've been killing each other for 10,000 years, Admiral. We've gotten very good at it. And when we learned there were threats among the stars, we decided to get better. 4 minutes. Admiral," his second-in-command whispered. "We should withdraw. If this gets back to the Empire, if they learn what happened here." Vextor knew what he meant. The Empire maintained control through fear. If word spread that a primitive world had defeated their fleet, rebellions would spark across 1,000 conquered worlds. 3 minutes, Chen said. Vextor closed all 4 of his eyes in defeat. "We accept your terms. We will withdraw." Admiral Vextor tried to maintain dignity as his crippled fleet prepared to retreat, but his tactical officer had questions that demanded answers. "Admiral, how did they know exactly where to place those mines? How did they have antimatter weapons ready? It's as if—" The officer paused, his scales shifting to a pattern of deep thought. "It's as if they knew we were coming." In Earth's command center, General Chen allowed herself a small smile as she watched the Kraxhar fleet struggle to regroup. She turned to an elderly man standing beside her, wearing a badge that simply said, "Project Director, Prometheus." "Tell them," Chen said. "Tell them everything. They deserve to know how we really won this." The man, Dr. James Crawford, had been waiting 43 years for this moment. He activated a secure channel that would reach not just the command teams, but historian databases that would preserve this truth forever. 43 years ago, Crawford began, a Kraxhar probe passed through our system. It was automated, just cataloging planets for future conquest. It barely noticed Earth, spent maybe 3 seconds scanning us before moving on. But it crashed into one of our early warning satellites. The room fell silent. Even those who knew parts of the story had never heard it all. We recovered the probe in secret. Inside, we found star charts showing the Empire's expansion pattern. We found records of their conquests. We saw what happened to worlds that resisted and worlds that surrendered. Both ended in slavery. We knew they would come for us eventually. Crawford pulled up a holographic display showing the probe's data. We had between 40 and 50 years before they arrived, according to their expansion rate. Every government on Earth was quietly informed. We had two choices: tell everyone and cause panic, or prepare in secret. We chose secrecy, Chen continued. We created a shadow organization that spanned all nations. Officially, we continued our petty conflicts and divisions. Secretly, we shared everything. Every technological advancement, every scientific discovery, every military innovation. The display showed images of hidden facilities around the world. The public thought we were wasting money on failed projects. The Mars mission that failed? We were actually building automated antimatter factories on Mars's moons. The International Space Station that accidentally deorbited. We crashed it deliberately to test our first antimatter weapons. But the antimatter technology, someone asked. How did we develop it so quickly? Dr. Tanaka, joining the briefing from her underwater facility, answered. The Kraxhar probe contained something precious. Their power source. A small antimatter reactor. We spent 20 years reverse engineering it, then another 20 improving it. The Kraxhar design was efficient but not perfect. We made it better. Every conflict on Earth for the last 30 years was orchestrated, Chen added. We needed to appear divided and primitive. The Middle East tensions, the trade wars, the border disputes, all theater. Behind the scenes, we were building underground cities, hidden factories, secret weapons. The hologram shifted to show Earth's hidden infrastructure. Entire mountain ranges had been hollowed out. The ocean floors had become industrial complexes. Antarctica, supposedly protected for science, was actually the largest weapons testing facility on the planet. We knew the Kraxhar would scout us before attacking, Crawford explained. So we fed them what they expected to see. A divided, primitive world with basic technology. Meanwhile, we studied every piece of data from their probe. We learned their language, their tactics, their psychology. On his damaged flagship, Admiral Vextor was reaching the same conclusions. He pulled up the Empire's original survey data of Earth from decades ago and compared it to current scans. The differences were subtle but undeniable. Energy signatures that didn't match. Population distributions that had shifted in unusual ways. Industrial output that didn't align with their supposed technology level. They played us, he whispered. For decades, they played us. His communications officer interrupted. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's being sent to our entire fleet and, sir, it's also being transmitted toward Empire space. Chen's face appeared on every screen in the fleet, but this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood representatives from every nation on Earth united. Admiral Vextor, before you leave, we have something else to show you. You're not our first alien contact. You're our second. The image shifted to show another alien ship, but this one was landed peacefully in a field, with humans and insectoid aliens working together. 20 years ago, we made contact with the Zephrani Commonwealth. They're a coalition of worlds that escaped Kraxhar conquest. They've been helping us prepare, sharing intelligence about your tactics and weaknesses. Did you wonder how we developed a virus for your computer so quickly? The Zephrani have been fighting your cyber systems for centuries. Vextor's scales went pale. The Zephrani were considered terrorists by the Empire, striking from hidden bases and disappearing before retaliation could arrive. If Earth had allied with them. But that's not all, Chen continued. We've been in contact with 17 other species that oppose your empire. Some are conquered worlds planning rebellion. Others are free worlds like Earth preparing for your arrival. We've shared our antimatter technology with all of them. We've given them the virus. We've shown them that the Empire can bleed. The implications hit the bridge crew like physical blows. This wasn't just a defeat. This was the beginning of something much larger. You triggered this, Chen said directly to Vextor. Every world watching knows now that the Empire can be beaten. A primitive planet with chemical rockets just destroyed one of your destroyers and crippled your fleet. How many worlds will find their courage now? How many will realize that the Empire's strength was always an illusion, maintained by fear? She paused, letting the words sink in. We gave you our sole warning because we're not conquerors. We don't want an empire, but we will not be slaves, and neither will anyone else if we can help it. New transmissions began flooding the Kraxhar communication systems. Reports from across the Empire of uprisings, rebellions, systems declaring independence. The news of Earth's victory was spreading faster than light through quantum communications, reaching every corner of Kraxhar space. "What have you done?" Vextor asked, his voice hollow. "We've given the galaxy hope," Chen replied. "Your empire was built on the belief that resistance was futile. We've proven that wrong. Now every world you've conquered knows they can fight back. Every world you haven't reached knows they can prepare." The display showed star maps with red dots appearing across Kraxhar space, each one a world in rebellion. The virus Earth had used was spreading through the Empire's computer networks, carried by the fleet's own emergency transmissions. Defensive systems were failing. Occupation forces were being overwhelmed. "You could have just defended Earth," Vextor said. "You could have won your freedom and stopped there, and waited for you to come back with a bigger fleet?" Chen shook her head. "No, this ends now. The age of the Kraxhar Empire is over. The age of free worlds has begun." She gestured to someone off-screen and new images appeared. Ships launching from Earth, not weapons, but vessels carrying diplomats, teachers, and engineers. "We're sending delegations to every world that wants freedom. We're sharing our technology, our tactics, our knowledge. Earth will stand with any world that chooses liberty over slavery." "The Empire will crush you," Vextor said desperately. "The Emperor will send the entire fleet." "What fleet?" Chen asked. "The one trying to contain the rebellion on Xerxes Prime? The one fighting the Zephrani offensive in the outer sectors? Or the one dealing with the 50 worlds that just declared independence using the weapons we sent them?" More reports flooded in. The Kraxhar homeworld was in chaos. The quantum virus had reached their central command, shutting down planetary defenses. Slave populations were rising up. The Empire's response was paralyzed by their own compromised systems. 43 years, Crawford said, stepping beside Chen. "We've been planning this for 43 years. Every move, every contingency, every possible response. We knew you would come. We knew you would threaten us. We knew you would attack when we refused to surrender. And we knew that defeating you here would light a fire across the galaxy." "You're monsters," Vextor whispered. "No," Chen said firmly. "We're humans. We fight for our freedom, and we'll fight for others' freedom too. Your empire conquered through fear. We'll defeat it through hope." Admiral Vextor's 3 remaining functional ships limped away from Earth's solar system. The mighty Inevitable Dominion, with half its systems offline and a third of its crew dead, led the retreat. Behind them, the debris of the Swift Judgment continued to spread through space, a glittering cloud that would serve as a warning to any who approached Earth with hostile intent. On the bridge, Vextor composed his final report to the Empire, or what remained of it. The news from home was catastrophic. 300 worlds in open rebellion, the Emperor's palace under siege by former slave soldiers, the great shipyards of Kraxhar Prime burning. "Admiral," his communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's not threatening. They're offering medical assistance for our wounded." Vextor's mandibles clicked in disbelief. "They destroy our fleet and then offer aid?" "The message says, 'We are not your enemies unless you make us so. Your wounded will be returned to you healed.' This is what strength without cruelty looks like." 3 shuttles were already approaching from Earth, marked with the red cross symbol that humans used for medical aid. Vextor could have ordered them destroyed, but what was the point? His weapons barely functioned, and these humans had already proven they could destroy his entire fleet if they chose. "Let them board," he commanded, the words tasting like ash. The human medical teams worked with efficiency that surprised the Kraxhar. They treated injured crew members without regard for rank or species, using medical technology that shouldn't have existed on a primitive world. One human doctor working on a wounded Kraxhar engineer spoke casually as she sealed a plasma burn. "You know, we've been studying Kraxhar physiology for 30 years. That probe you sent had biological samples. We know how to heal you better than you might think." Within 6 hours, 800 wounded Kraxhar who would have died were stabilized. The humans asked for nothing in return, though they left each patient with a small device. "Translation unit," the lead doctor explained to Vextor, "in case any of them ever want to talk to humans again, under better circumstances." As the medical shuttles departed, Vextor received another message, this time from someone identifying himself as the Secretary General of the United Earth Government. "Admiral, you're probably wondering why we helped your wounded. It's simple. We want the galaxy to know that humanity is not the Kraxhar Empire. We don't rule through fear. We don't celebrate death. We protect those who need protection, and heal those who need healing, even our enemies once they stop being enemies. The transmission included footage from Earth. Not military footage, but scenes of everyday human life. Children playing in parks, farmers tending fields, scientists working in labs, artists creating beauty, musicians performing in concert halls. This is what we fought to protect, the Secretary General continued. Not our weapons or our technology, but our right to live freely. To create, to love, to explore, to grow. Your empire would have taken that from us. That's why we fought so hard. Vextor watched the images with a mixture of emotions he couldn't name. The Empire had always taught that conquered species were inferior, that they needed the Empire's guidance. But these humans had outsmarted them, outfought them, and now were showing mercy that the Empire would never have offered. Days passed as the crippled fleet made its slow journey home. Along the way, they encountered other Kraxhar vessels fleeing from various rebellions. The news they brought was consistently grim. The virus had evolved, spreading through any system that connected to Imperial networks. Worlds that had been under Kraxhar control for centuries were declaring independence. But more disturbing were the reports of human ships appearing in these systems. Not warships, but cargo vessels carrying humanitarian aid and technical advisors. Earth was helping every rebelling world establish defenses, set up governments, and rebuild their societies. They're not conquering, Vextor's second-in-command observed. They're liberating. When Vextor finally reached Kraxhar Prime, he found a world transformed. The Imperial Palace was surrounded by protesters, not slaves, but Kraxhar citizens demanding reform. The Emperor himself had fled to a secure bunker, trying to maintain control over the collapsing empire. Vextor was summoned immediately to give his report. The Emperor, once a figure of absolute authority, now looked haggard and desperate. "Tell me you destroyed them," the Emperor demanded. "Tell me Earth burns." "Earth stands undefeated," Vextor reported formally. "They destroyed the Swift Judgment in 12 seconds. They crippled our fleet with weapons we didn't know primitives could possess. They had been preparing for us for 43 years. Impossible!" The Emperor's scales flared red. "They're primitives. They barely have spaceflight. That was a deception, Your Eminence. They wanted us to believe they were primitive. They united their entire world in secret while appearing divided. They developed antimatter weapons while pretending to struggle with chemical rockets. They allied with our enemies while seeming isolated." Vextor activated a hologram showing the battle. The Emperor watched in horror as the Swift Judgment disappeared in a cloud of antimatter fire. "But worst of all," Vextor continued, "they've given hope to every world we've conquered. The rebellions aren't random. They're coordinated. Earth is leading them. Then we'll send the entire fleet. We'll show them the price of defiance." "What fleet?" Vextor asked quietly. "Half our ships are infected with their virus. A quarter are dealing with rebellions. The rest are trying to maintain order on worlds that no longer fear us." The Emperor fell silent, the weight of the situation finally crushing down on him. 4,000 years of conquest, ended by a single world that refused to kneel. A communication signal interrupted them. Without authorization, Earth's transmission overrode the palace's systems, appearing on every screen. General Chen's face looked out at them, but this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood representatives of hundreds of species, some that the Kraxhar had conquered, others they had never seen before. "Emperor of the Kraxhar," Chen began, "I speak for the Free Worlds Alliance. As of this moment, your empire is dissolved. Every world that chooses freedom will be protected. Any attempt to reconquer them will be met with the combined might of all free species." "You cannot do this," the Emperor raged. "It's already done," Chen replied, "but we're not without mercy. The Kraxhar worlds that choose to join the Alliance will be welcomed. Your technology and knowledge could help the galaxy, if used for creation instead of conquest. You have a choice. Join us in building a better future, or isolate yourselves and fade into history." The transmission showed human ships arriving at former Kraxhar colonies, bringing food, medicine, and teachers. It showed species that had been enemies for centuries working together. It showed the galaxy that could be if fear was replaced with cooperation. "This is Earth's gift to the galaxy," Chen concluded. "Not conquest, but liberation. Not empire, but alliance. Any species that comes in peace will find friends on Earth. Any that come with weapons will find what you found. A species that has mastered war but chooses peace." The transmission ended, leaving the palace in silence. The Emperor looked at Vextor, then at his remaining advisors. Outside, the protests were growing louder. The people were chanting for peace, for change, for a new way forward. "What do I do?" the emperor asked, and for the first time in 4,000 years, a Kraxhar emperor sounded lost. "We survive," Vextor said simply. "We adapt. We learn, maybe we become better." 6 months later, the galaxy had transformed completely. The Free Worlds Alliance included over 2,000 systems. Earth had become its unofficial capital, not through conquest but through respect. Human advisors were helping worlds establish democratic governments. Human teachers were sharing knowledge freely. Human doctors were healing wounds left by centuries of oppression. The Kraxhar Empire was no more. In its place, the Kraxhar Republic had joined the Alliance, contributing their advanced technology to the collective good. Vextor himself had become an ambassador, working alongside humans he had once tried to conquer. On Earth, in what had once been the United Nations building, now the headquarters of the Free Worlds Alliance, General Chen stood before a gathering of representatives from across the galaxy. "We gave one warning," she said. "The Kraxhar didn't listen, and it cost them their empire. But from that conflict came something better, a galaxy united not by fear but by hope. Not by force but by choice." She paused, looking at the incredible diversity of species gathered in peace. "Earth stands ready to defend any world that chooses freedom. That is our promise to the galaxy. Come in peace and find welcome. Come in war, and remember what happened to the Kraxhar Empire when they ignored our sole warning." The assembly erupted in applause, a sound that would have been impossible just a year ago. Former enemies standing together, former slaves standing as equals, and at the center of it all, the small blue planet that had changed everything. Earth had given its sole warning. The galaxy had learned to listen,